In the immortal words of Destiny's Child, I'm a survivor. And I hope that you all are too, because part of the joy of being a fan of horror cinema is the inexplicable ability to provide oneself with the simulation of fear, which is very important because you have to ask yourself the question, what would I do in this horror situation? Now, there were several decades where horror cinema was resigned to the fact of having dumb protagonists do dumb things and ultimately end up as pretty easy pickings for the killer in question. But for some of those films, they decided enough was enough. They were mad as hell and they weren't going to take it anymore. Hello horror fans, what's going on? And once again, welcome back to the Scariest channel on YouTube, top 5 scary videos. As per usual, I'll be your horror host, Jack Finch, as today we curiously take a look at the top 5 scariest survival horror movies. Roll the clip.
Dead animals. Hundreds of them.
This is not good, guys.
We get out of here. Which way?
For the curious amongst you, of course, that clip was from 2005's The Descent, because when it comes to survival horror, there are few finer films. However, we've pulled up Neil Marshall's awesome film time and time again, so let's have a more astute look at things. Also, it's important to note that survival horror is pretty difficult to define. In some ways, every horror film is survival horror, given the fact that, well, people are trying to stay alive, but come on. Let's not get too smart. In this case, it's survival versus people and or the majestic landscape of the wilderness. So there we go, clearly defined. Kicking off at number 5, A Lonely Place to Die, 2011.
Huh?
2011 wasn't the greatest year for cinema, particularly when it came to horror, but strangely enough, this little gem of a high-octane mountaineering, rip-roaring horror thriller creeped in like an assassin with a sniper rifle in the wilderness. And it was wrapped in a package that wasn't really a horror film at all, which may have been why most people brushed it off, but boy oh boy, when we put the words survival and horror together, they are the literal definition of this film. Written and directed by Julian and Will Gilby, A Lonely Place to Die sets out as just another survival movie, a group of people facing up against Mother Nature, but then very quickly a fly is added to that ointment and the game quickly becomes a very different kind of beast. It stars Melissa George as Alison, an experienced mountaineer and rock climber who, alongside her friends Ed, Rob, Jenny and Alex, takes on a hiking and climbing trip to the Scottish Highlands. Now, as I said previously, the first half of this film is very much a survival horror, and if we're being technical, all of the technical expertise lies in the first half for reasons that I won't try and spoil for you. You see, as the hiking group are making their way up the mountain, they find something in the wilderness that sets them on a completely new path. And then before you know it, this film is cooking with gas, and a very unexpected conflict rears its ugly head. I'll try not to say too much because the narrative to this film is actually very entertaining, in line with most classic early 2000s British thrillers, but it really does go the distance in terms of transitioning from one film to the other. Yeah, it might be a little bit messy in places, but the point of this film is that we trust in the protagonists. For the most part, they're not idiots, particularly Melissa George's character, and we're right there with her as she's sprinting through the thicket, cuts and bruises and psychological trauma and all. Also, more importantly, this film is so damn entertaining. Sometimes we just want to see people climb a mountain and then get chased back down it. Alright? Fine. Swinging in at number 4, Backcountry, 2014.
I didn't reach for that once. I wanted to bring it in case we needed it, which we do.
Can't get reception out here anyway.
Well, I would have loved to try.
Boy, this film is good. Really good, and it may perhaps be the most traditional of survival horrors on this list, but that's by the by because they're all terrifying in their own unique ways. This one though, this one has a little helping hand, or a claw. Listen, I love bears. I've got a bear tattooed on me, but they are immensely powerful wild animals, territorial creatures that will tear your face off and eat you given the chance. Bears are terrifyingly efficient animals, and well, that sounds like a pretty decent horror villain to me, right? And whilst that might come off as a little bit spoiler-ish, come on, you need only take one look at this film and realise it's going to feature some kind of nature. So yeah, consider yourselves pre-warned, I guess. Written and directed by Adam McDonald, the Canadian filmmaker that would go on to create 2017's Pewacket, Backcountry is loosely based on the true story of a man-eating bear attack in Missinaba Lake Provincial Park in Ontario back in 2005. The film itself tells the tale of Alex and Jen, a couple that decides to take a weekend camping trip out in the wilderness. Now, Alex figures himself as quite the capable outdoorsman, and Jen is admittedly an unabashed rookie. But the true choking fear of this film is how quickly things can go wrong in the wilderness if you approach Mother Nature with arrogance, much to the umbrage of Alex. Now, I won't say any more because this film is reliant on the unraveling of its plot to deliver the anxiety, but part of the true joy of this film is in its bare bones approach to filmmaking. For all intents and purposes, this film demonstrates the strengths that can be found in independent cinema. Put it this way, if Backcountry starred anyone of big name cinema, it wouldn't really have done the same job. That's not to say that the acting in this film isn't remarkable though, because it really is, and for a cast of essentially 4 people and a bear, you better hope the acting is good. Yeah, Backcountry, really good one, give it a watch. Next up at number 3, Eden Lake, 2008.
Is that new?
Yeah, do you like it?
I like the bottom.
Where do we even begin with Eden Lake? I'm not entirely sure. You see, whilst this film very much is the definition of survival horror, also the means in which that survival takes place is a whole different topic. As far as British horror cinema is concerned, 2008's Eden Lake has made some serious waves, although at the time it wasn't exactly heralded as a breakthrough piece of cinema, but nevertheless, because in hindsight it managed to define a very specific time and place, which is important, particularly when we're analysing the term survival in this sense. Also, it's also important to note this film will make you very angry. You will not watch this film and find any sense of resolution. In many ways, it's British cinema's attempt at the new French extremity. It's hopeless, and for a survival film, that's a really bleak premise. Nevertheless, there are many things to be found in 2008's Eden Lake that define the parameters of what is needed to make us care about a character's survival. Just in this case, it might not be those that we expect. Written and directed by James Watkins, who would go on to direct 2012's The Woman in Black, Eden Lake tells the tale of a nursery school teacher, Jenny, played by Kelly Riley, and her boyfriend Steve, played by Michael Fassbender. Also, it's important to note that both Riley and Fassbender deliver some remarkable performances in this film, but the show is well and truly stolen by Jack O'Connell, one of my favourite British actors of all time, and who truly manages to steal the show here with absolutely electrifying performances throughout. O'Connell plays a teenager named Brett, the psychopathic leader of a gang of youngsters who torment Jenny and Steve during their weekend camping trip. And yeah, that's kind of all there is to it really, but start to finish, this film is a white knuckle ride that you can't help but watch. Like I said, this film will make you angry, it will make you scream at the screen, it will make you question why you're even watching it. But like I said, putting this on a survival list is kind of a double standard, but as far as making you feel something in terms of horror, this one is in a league of its own. Coming in at number 2, You're Next, 2011. Yeah, of course, although we may have lowered the tone a little bit with Eden Lake, we can bring up the full frontal horror joy with 2011's You're Next. And this film definitely wouldn't be a survival horror in the traditional sense, unless that is, if it wasn't for one character in particular. Erin, one of the most awesome final girls ever written, but hey, we'll stop there because no spoilers, right? On that note though, it's also probably appropriate to mention that this film is technically a home invasion movie, but hey, again, thanks to Erin, this film is very much a survival film. But again, no spoilers. Hey, whatever, you guys can probably guess by now what's going on with this film, but for those of you that haven't seen it, please give Your Next a watch because it's a necessary entry for any horror fan's catalogue, and if this one's flown you by like a straight arrow from a tree line, make sure you go catch it. Written by Simon Barrett and directed by Adam Wingard, Your Next tells the tale of Erin, played by Shani Vincent, and her boyfriend Crispin, who head out to a family reunion at his parents' vacation home in rural Missouri, along with his dysfunctional brothers and sisters and their partners, respectively. What starts as the stereotypical family comedy / drama, and believe me, some of the dialogue in this film is laugh out loud hilarious, and Barrett holds impeccable detail to the tightness of the dialogue with some surprisingly fantastic performances from the supporting cast. It also serves to descend into total chaos as the film rolls onward, and trust me, once the trigger on this film has been pulled, there is no going back. Again, this film might make you question who's surviving who, but hey, it's fun nonetheless. Seriously, this film is so damn entertaining that the usual tropes of isolation and despair that comes with survival horror aren't at all found. They're not needed. In that regard, it sticks out like a sore thumb, but that's exactly why it deserves our praise. Give this one a watch. And finally, coming in at the #1 spot, Deliverance, 1972.
You done taken a wrong turn. See, the Cherry River don't go nowhere near Antry.
Ding 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 ding. Yeah. Of course. Come on guys, now for me there is no greater survival horror movie than 1972's Deliverance. There just isn't. Nothing has yet been made to surpass the mastery of it. And do you know what's really weird? This film isn't ever really considered to be a survival horror movie. Yeah, that's a head scratcher because all I'd say is, what? Really? Have you seen it? This film is the definition of survival and it's horrifying. And 75% of this film is some of the most perilous, tense, extreme situations of man versus nature versus man in the wild ever caught on camera. Deliverance is awesome, start to finish, and horror aside, it's a landmark piece of cinema that should be witnessed by any appreciator of the art form. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, let's talk about one of the most messed up movies ever made. Written and directed by John Boorman, based upon the novel of the same name by James Dickey, Deliverance tells a tale of four men, Lewis, Ed, Bobby and Drew, who decide to head on down to Georgia on a canoe trip. Yeah, it's a simple setup, it's a simple delivery with phenomenal execution. This film just couldn't have been made by today's standards, I'm sure of it. It was the last vestige of awe-inspiring on-location cinema that truly gives this film the scope it serves. Put it this way, halfway through the production of Deliverance, which was shot entirely on location, James Dickey, the author of the novel it was based on, came on set drunk out of his mind and he started a fist fight with John Boorman because he was angry about a certain rewrite. Then they made up and they were good friends. Yeah, exactly. I almost don't want to say anything about this film's plot, particularly about a few key moments, but trust me on this one, if you haven't seen Deliverance, it's phenomenal. Also, I mean, just look at the cast. Ned Beatty, John Voight, Ronnie Cox, Burt Reynolds. My man Burt, the late great titan of cinema. Yeah, I needn't say any more. Deliverance is number one. That's all there is to it. Move on. Well, there we have it guys, our list for the top 5 scariest survival horror movies. What do you guys think? Do you agree, disagree, have any more to add to this list? Let us know your thoughts down in the comment section below, as well as any choice picks of your own. Before we depart from today's video, if you'd like to continue on with your horror movie recommendation binge, please collect your things and take a look at our neatly compiled playlist arranged for your viewing enjoyment. Don't know why I slowed down so much there, but it worked. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for in today's video. Just sticking around all the way until the end. If you were a fan of this video, or just top 5 scary videos in general, then please be a dear and hit that thumbs up button, as well as that subscriber, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. As per usual, I've been your horror host, Jack Finch. You've been watching top 5 scary videos. Until next time, you take it easy.